And hi guys, hi there, how are all of you? I hope you all are fine. Well, my name is Yusuf and I'm back on Yusuf Reacts. Well guys, today I'm back again with a very interesting movie review that is there for you people. Well, the movie that I'm going to be talking about as far as today is concerned is going to be a classic. It literally had, I would say a lot of things that were there in it. And it's basically inspired from a true story, so that is something which really adds a bit more into the movie itself. The movie that I'm going to be talking about for today is going to be, before I do that, it's going to be a blast from the past. And when I say this thing up, it's going to be a blast from the past. The thing that is making it so exceptional is going to be this thing up, that the movie's name is Catch Me If You Can. Now the title in itself says a lot. Now, Catch Me If You Can is a movie that had a lot to offer. And if I say about this particular film, in this particular movie, we see a young Leonardo DiCaprio and we see Tom Hanks portraying a very important role, I would say, as an FBI individual who checks or is the one who is responsible for checking out the checks fraud that eventually takes place at the particular time in the United States during the time of the 20th century. So this is how the things eventually went along. A really classic movie that really was so inspiring, it was so cool, and you could really see a lot of things that were there in it. Now, before we move on to the particular film, what are the things that really are important? We see Leonardo DiCaprio as a young individual who eventually is someone who, is not like this from the start. Means he's not someone who is involved in fraudery or stuff like that. But because of the fact that the situations, they tend to become too much drastic. We see his father becoming a very renowned individual and he has been doing really well, but certainly some things eventually tend to happen where he is blamed for that particular conspiracy and eventually his assets are sealed up. When his assets eventually get sealed up, that's from where the problems tend to start up. His wife, in other words, Leonardo's mother, is the lady who eventually does what? She's someone who is there with him, but eventually she wants all the luxury and the perks. So when she has to move from a very big house to a small home apartment, and from there she eventually has to let go all her particular things, this is something that becomes really hard for her. Eventually she does what? She develops relationships with his father's friends and stuff like that, and that is how the things eventually go along. And Leonardo, he himself even catches his mother one time having a certain kind of physical relationship with a particular friend of his father, and he really does feel that particular thing up. On the other hand, we see his father, a very honest and hard-working individual who really does not lose hope and still strives to make a living and go on and carry on with all the particular things that are there. Now coming to the main idea that was there was what? Now Leo, being a particular individual who is a teenager, now that teenager is someone who has grown in a particular time frame where he had all the luxuries that were present. But now a certain time comes that he does not have any particular thing. Looking at the situation of his parents, he clearly is again quite demoralized with how the things are eventually going on. Keeping that demoralized state in his mind, he eventually wants to approach the world with a different mindset. He wants to take revenge, and revenge in this particular manner, he wants each and everything back that is taken away from him. Now the things that he eventually tend to adopt is what? His father eventually opens an account for him, and in that particular account he obviously gets a checkbook for that. So there are 50 checks that he has. Now he wants to utilize those 50 checks, and that's where he eventually starts off with his journey, because he does not have any money in his account, so he prefers to do certain kind of fraudery. Over there he eventually sees this thing up that checks eventually do get cashed, but of certain individuals that are there. Pan Am is a very famous, in other words, Pan America is a very famous airline company that's there, and he sees this thing up that the ones who become pilots, they are the ones who have really renowned kind of particular aura that's there and representing that particular thing. So now he wants to do some research about them. He wants to even come to know that how they eventually earn the money, how eventually things go along and stuff like that. So this is how the things eventually move on, and that's what the whole thing is about. And he is someone then who develops that particular instinct, and he develops that characteristic in himself that he wants to do that particular thing. So he then does research, and with the research, how does he do that? He eventually becomes a news reporter for a particular journal in a particular college that he fakes it up, and he meets up the particular individual who is the representative of Pan America, and he takes his interview, and in that interviews he definitely comes across with all the particular queries and questions that he has. What are the things that are required for it, how an individual or a pilot needs to dress like, what are the things that he needs to have, and so on like that. So this is how the whole thing eventually moves on, and that's how eventually he learns, and then he starts to go on with it. But the most important thing that he gets to know over here is this, that the payroll, if eventually you have a payroll check, your eventually check can be cashed on the spot no matter whatever the bank is. And this is something that really intrigues him, and that's from where he starts earning the money. He starts forging checks up, and he then prints it up, and he just goes on with it and on with it, earns a hell lot of money that is there. On the other way, we see a particular agent known as Tom Hank. Now Tom Hank is the particular individual who really is someone who has not made a mark for himself, but he's an expert at his work, and he's someone who's really determined to catch this particular kid. Now the thing which tends to happen is what? The thing fakes himself up. He fakes himself in this particular manner that he fakes his own particular identity. By faking it up, he becomes a doctor, and he shows that he's a renowned doctor from Harvard. Eventually, he in order to be getting caught up, before that he gets indulged with a particular attendant at that particular place, a nurse, and she's someone who belongs to a particular guy who is a very famous lawyer, his father. And then he again went back, and he again pretends to be a lawyer over there. So Leo eventually gets faked up, but over there in all these particular things, he develops a very nice relationship with Tom Hank. The relationship with Tom Hank that he possesses is what? The relationship with Tom Hank that he possesses is this, that on every Christmas he calls him up and he wants to talk to him, because Leo at one hand is the one who is lonely, and Tom Hank on the other hand is also someone who's very lonely because his family has left him, and especially his wife, because of the current situations. She wanted a luxurious lifestyle and all those particular things. So now that's how the things eventually went wrong, and they go along, and then eventually we see this thing up that he gets caught. And when he gets caught, now after a few weeks of imprisonment, he's 12 years of imprisonment that he gets after being caught. And in that particular thing, the FBI and especially Tom Hank tries his level best that he should not have to suffer, because he was not such a bad guy who did so many bad things. Yes, he did fraudery, but there was a reason behind that. So he gives him an opportunity that he becomes the helper of the FBI. He works for them, and in return, the thing which will happen is what? The thing which will happen is this, that he'll get his freedom. So that's how the things eventually go along. And this is how the things are eventually then moving along with it. And then we see this thing up that he's someone who becomes a very key ingredient or a key element that's there. That key element is someone who eventually now works with Tom Hank. They have a very good brotherly relationship, and then that's how the movie tends to go up. In all, if we talk about it, the movie literally showed that how materialistic women were at a particular time in America, and how eventually the men had to work so hard for their particular things. And especially for a young particular teenage guy, when that individual comes across certain circumstances what kind of an impact can it have on that particular individual. So this is what the movie was all about. A very awesome movie, literally a classic. Yes, before I go, I want you people to subscribe to my channel, press the like button, share my videos as much as you guys can. Your support is something that is really important, and I want you guys to shower your support on me. So this is me, Yusuf, saying goodbye to people. Thank you very much for your time, guys. Take care. Bye.